All right, guys, let's wrap up with the 1As. This is Idaho's smallest classification, and this to me is the one that's most wide open when you talk about, state champion favorites, because there is a void. Kendrick moved up, Hagerman moved up. Here are the preseason favorites according to our coaches polls. Wallace, the favorite up there in District 1, the North Star League. Deary gets the nod in District 2, the White Pine League, now that Kendrick has vacated. Council was the pick over in the Long Pin Conference over in District 3. Carey, old familiar face after a 2-year sojourn up to the 2A level. Carey is back at the 1A ranks. They're the favorites in District 4, the Sawtooth Conference. And then Rockland and North Gem got the tie for the Rocky Mountain Conference title in our preseason poll over in Districts 5 and 6. Logan, Carey, back in 1A football. It just feels right, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they did well in their move up, right? They made it to the semifinals in a game against Oakley where they had the lead late and lost it, and so they could have won a state championship up at that level 2 years ago. And then I think they made it last year and lost in the first round at Grace, if I remember right. But back down, and that's just what everybody else did not want to see, right? With whether you're Camas County or Dietrich or anybody else in that level, but Carey is going to be right back in the mix. The Panthers should be a tough team to deal with this year once again.
Yep, and they got the nod over Camas County and Dietrich. That top three, though, in that Sawtooth Conference is going to be really interesting. I guess the highest placer from a year ago on our graphic is Rockland, right? Rockland got to the semifinals for the first time in over 30 years last year. They're tied at the top with North Gem. Now, Rockland did lose Teague Matthews, right? He's balling out at Utah State, which is awesome for an 8-man kid from Rockland, Idaho, to go to Utah State. But they do bring back all the receivers that he threw to last year. Aiden Radford is back. Abe Held is back. Rockland, if they can find a quarterback that can distribute the ball, I think Rockland's going to be pretty good again. North Gem's the opposite. We know what they're all about. They're going to run the rock. They're going to line up, and if they throw the ball twice in a game, that's a failure on the coach's game plan. Like, that's how adamant they are to running the ball. And they've got a lot of good. Rusty Hatch, the son of head coach Corey Hatch, he's the quarterback. He runs the option extremely well. Craig Yost was a sophomore fullback last year, rushed for over 1,000 yards. They've got some good linemen up front. Lucky Welker's a good guy on defense. So North Gem's going to be interesting. North Gem missed out on the playoffs last year. There was a 3-way tie for second place between Mackey, North Gem, and Water Springs. They all beat each other, and there was only one spot available to the playoffs. Went to the 3-way tiebreaker on a point differential, and Mackey actually won it by a single point over North Gem to get that second spot to the playoffs. So North Gem's certainly motivated to get back. Logan, Council was a team a lot of people expected to be in the semifinals or beyond last year. They were upset by Dietrich in the first round. You were there for that game.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. I had talked to a couple of parents before, and I had been very adamant that I thought Council got put in a tough spot based on the way that bracket sets up, that they could have been one of the best 2 or 3 teams in the whole classification outside of Camas County and Kendrick last year. And then they get to the playoffs, and Dietrich, they showed up, man. They showed up and they played well. They wanted it, and they won that game and move on. And then, got beat by Kendrick the next week. But man, just a great effort there. And I think Council would love to wash that taste out of their mouth. And that's something that I would expect them to do. They went undefeated in the conference last year, really kind of just pushed through everybody. Garden Valley was that next team behind Council, and we thought that they would be able to push them. Those two met. We were there for that game too. Council they took control of that game and won handily. But again, I don't think you can count Garden Valley out of that equation either. To come in second, they got maybe one of the best players in the league in Trevor Korn. I think last year we did a game last year. I think he scored 5 touchdowns on his birthday, I think is what it was. That game against Horseshoe Bend. That guy, he's tough to bring down. He's stocky. He's going to be a tough guy for anybody to tackle back in the backfield. They'll be bringing in a new quarterback after, I think, I don't know if there's a Kelly on the team this year. There's got to be somewhere, right? But there has been some sort of Kelly that's been leading that Garden Valley team for years. So we'll see how that shakes out. But when you got a guy like Korn in the backfield, you're going to be able to get it done. But, that 1-2 punch of Council, Garden Valley, I think we'll see that play out again this year.
Big question for Garden Valley. Can they find another kicker after Timo Benzinger, the foreign exchange student, returned back to his home country of Germany? We'll have to see if Garden
That was
Valley
the first 8-man extra point I saw in a game myself, was there when he stepped up and booted an extra. I almost was taken aback when I saw them line up for the extra point. But, man, he nailed that thing. It was fun to watch.
For sure. All right, we'll wrap up in the North, Ryan. Let's start in the White Pine League. Deary got the nod. It was very close. Lewis County was second in our preseason coaches poll. Really, any of the four. Genesee is dropping down from 2A to 1A, and even I think Timberline is primed for a big step forward. This is a tough league to figure out.
The White Pine League can be a log jam this year. I look at it. That conference is pretty evenly matched. I think Pedrobsky, with what he's doing at Genesee, coming down. They get the kids from Colton playing in that co-op there. That's a team to keep an eye on, I think, in that conference. Timberline's going to be sneaky. I mean, you got Christofferson at quarterback. He's going to be back. There's some talent around him. Can they stay healthy is the question mark. I know that's been kind of their issue the last few years, is they get, beat up a little bit through the middle of the season, and they end up missing things there at the end. Lewis County is a team I kind of said in the prep cast last week was the team to keep an eye on in that conference. Monty Madrell does such a good job with the cast of kids that he's got in that program, between Highland from Craigmont and Nez Perce kids playing together in that Lewis County team. That's a team. That conference is really hard to pick, because you look at Deary. Deary could be one injury away from being on the bottom, and that's the thing that the razor's edge. It's such a fine edge on these teams with who's on top and who's going to be kind of in the mix. But I really look at all these teams like, realistically, you could be 2-2 going into the final week. Like, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if we had a 3-way tie at the top for the conference at the end of the season.
Yep. And then all the way up to the North Star League, where 3 of the 4 teams are actually 2A schools: Lakeside, Clark Fork, Wallace. Poor Coeur de Christ, it's their first year of football, and they're the only true 1A team in this conference. Some notable names that we'll see coaching these teams. Of course, Jared Young at Wallace, who's been there for 10 years, and Patrick Young, not related. He's coaching Clark Fork in his second year, former Wampus Cat alum. And then 2 new coaches: Jerry Louis McGee, former Lake City and University of Montana standout wide receiver. He's taking over the Lakeside program. And then Kellen Clemens, former Oregon and NFL quarterback. He's the athletic director at Coeur de Christ. His son is the freshman quarterback for the Saints as well. So this is an intriguing league, but overall, Wallace, just based on the size and who they have coming back, is the favorite.
Yeah, I look at Wallace with based on their turning things on paper. Wallace looks like the favorite. They were obviously voted by the coaches to be the league favorite. I mean, Lakeside, we saw last year at times, they showed flashes of brilliance. I mean, with just speed and talent that they had in the program. Obviously, they've graduated some kids. We saw them obviously play Lapway for the state championship again in basketball. Some of those kids translates to the football field. Not everybody plays. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this conference kind of how it shakes out. I think Wallace is going to take it this year. We obviously lost. Mullen St. Regis goes over to Montana. They're over the hill this year playing in Montana. And then Kootenai didn't have a program put together this year, so those kids are playing at St. Mary's. But yeah, it's one of those leagues that kind of gets forgotten about a little bit in the North, because we've had some great teams in the last few years, especially with Mullen St. Regis, and Stetson Spooner did such a great job there with that team. And now he's going to hopefully be joining us a little bit here at Idaho Sports, which will be awesome. But yeah, it's Wallace, I think, is the favorite in that conference. I'm interested to see Coeur de Christ in year one. What can a year one team do? And it takes time to build a program, obviously, but you're a private school. Pulling kids from the school district, homeschool kids, kind of come in and make this mishmash and see what, kind of recipe Coach Clemens can put together there. It's going to be cool. We're going to have it this week. I mean, we're going to see week 1, them in Lakeside, what we can get going on in that game, and a lot to tell. Coeur de Christ could come out and set the world on fire. We just don't know. We'll see Friday night.
Yeah, Coeur de Christ will have a freshman quarterback. Wallace has a freshman quarterback, Cooper Miller. He played in the Idaho Bowl this summer and really stood out.
That's what I was going to say, Brandon. I was going to mention that. I know I'm not a North guy, but I saw him play in the Idaho Bowl, and that kid was going toe-to-toe with kids that are going to be at 6A and 5A schools, and he looked just the part. He's got a cannon for an arm. He could be one of the best quarterbacks in all of North Idaho. You know, it doesn't matter the classification. Just that'll be a fun team to watch in Wallace.
Yep. I had somebody tell me last year that he could have been the MVP of the North Star League as an 8th grader, which is just
crazy. Super fun to watch.
Yeah. And we are in contract negotiations with former Mullen St. Regis coach Stetson Spooner to be a broadcaster for us this year on some North Idaho games as well. So stay tuned for that also. Okay, here's the 1A schedule for week 1, guys. I get to go first this time, and so I will quickly spotlight the game. Ryan, you and I will be at Lakeside and Coeur de Christ at the Mariman Health Core Center in Worley. It's a beautiful turf field that the Coeur d'Alene tribe installed. And Coeur de Christ is going to play all of their home games in Worley this year. Basically, Lakeside's doing them a solid. The Core Center is doing them a solid. Hey, you're a first-year coach. Kellen Clements has held football camps down there for the tribe in the past, and they said basically first-year program, we're not going to charge you to use the facilities. I thought that was actually a really cool move by the Mariman Health Core Center to loan their field and their facilities to Coeur de Christ here in their initial year. In terms of the game, a lot of unknowns. We'll see who shows up and everything. There's just, because the turnover was so high with Lakeside and then everybody's new at Coeur de Christ, it's going to be really fun to see these two kind of feel each other out. Ryan, what game are you looking at?
I'm going to look at the game. I already picked that one in previous. I can't go that route. Let's go Timberline and Wallace. I think this is an intriguing matchup. We look at, two teams coming out of summer camp. We talk about Wallace with the freshman phenom QB. Timberline's got their returning quarterback that's a sophomore. You got solid running back that's returned for them as well. That's going to be I think an intriguing matchup that's got some playoff ramifications already here in North Idaho, in my opinion, just based on record and who gets in and that second seed coming out of the White Pine. And any win right now in the state, especially at the 1A ranks, is big as far as rankings go and getting into the playoffs. But that to me, I think, is one of the more intriguing matchups here.
Logan, Clark County is going to play a JV schedule this year against all of their league opponents, and basically it's going to be 6-man games when they play. They've reached an agreement with all the schools in their conference to play 6-man games. So I guess that leaves you with Genesee and Lapwai.
And that's what I was going to take, honestly, because Genesee, a team that's been down the last couple of years, they're going to bring in – they played a lot of freshmen last year. And so naturally you're just going to have a big learning curve, right? A bunch of freshmen stepping in to play against a lot of really good teams. And so I'm going to go up against Lapwai, who has been not as strong in football last year as they traditionally are. They make the playoffs, that they're a pretty good playoff team year in and year out. Not there last year. So two teams looking to take a bigger step forward this year. It should be actually a really good game. I think both teams will learn a lot about themselves this year, and a game that doesn't necessarily count against your league standings. They're close enough that the kids probably know each other a decent amount just down the road from each other. So it should be a fun one to keep your eye on, Genesee and Lapwai.